Hello everyone, in today's video I'm going to walk you through the challenge lab creating a static website for the cafe. Let's click on Start Lab to start the lab environment. Wait several minutes until the yellow AWS icon becomes green. And then click on AWS to open the management console in a new tab. Switch back to the instruction and click on AWS Details. And then click on Access the multiple choice questions to open the multiple choice question in the new tab. Switch back to the instruction, and we need first download the zip file. And extract it and save it locally. So I saved it into my C driver. So next step, I need to create a S3 bucket to host the static web content. So let's switch to the management console. First, we need to make sure the region is US East 1, North Virginia, and search S3 in the search box and click on S3 to open the S3 console and click on Create Bucket. So for the bucket name, I would suggest you to use your initial and followed by some random number to ensure the uniqueness of the bucket name. For object ownership, make sure ACL is enabled, and we need to uncheck the block or public access option and acknowledge it because we are going to build a public accessible website. Leave the other option as is and click on Create Bucket. Now the bucket has been created, we need to go ahead and enable the static website hosting by clicking on the bucket name and click on Properties. Scroll down all the way to the bottom of the page, Static Website Hosting, and click on Edit. Select Enable and type index.html as the default indexed document and save the changes. So next we need to upload the HTML files that we just downloaded, right? So let's go ahead, scroll up all the way and click on Objects. Right now, there's no objects within the bucket, so we can select all the files that we just downloaded, drag and drop into the management console. Right, so this is the list of the files and folders that we are going to upload, and click on Upload. Wait several minutes until all the files gets uploaded successfully. And once the file has been uploaded successfully, close the message and click on Close and click on Properties tab. Again, scroll down to the bottom of the page under the bucket website endpoint. So this is basically the URL pointing to the static website. Click on it to open the website in a new tab. And as we can see, we get the access denied error. So that brings us to question number 1. When viewing the website after task 3, do you see the page in the browser? No, because the page is still not public accessible because there's no bucket policy created yet. So select that, click on Submit. Hit the back button, and then move on to the next step, which is to create a bucket policy to grant public read access, right? So we go to the management console, scroll up all the way, and click on Permissions tab. As you can see, the bucket policy right now is empty. So we need to hit Edit to create the bucket policy. There are several ways of creating a bucket policy. I'm going to show you how to use the policy generator to create the bucket policy. Click on Policy Generator to open new tab. Step 1, select S3 bucket policy. Step 2, the effort is allowed because we are granting access. So the principle is star indicating it's everybody. And in terms of the actions, we want only the GetObject API call. So we select GetObject. So that's the read access. And in terms of the resource name, go back to the previous tab, copy the bucket ARN, and paste it here. So this is the ARN for the bucket, but we want to include all the objects within that bucket. So it's /star. So this means all files within that bucket. And click on Add Statement and click on Generate Policy. So you can review the policy that's been generated. Basically, it's allow everyone to have GetObject access to any or to all the files within this specific S3 bucket. So select all, copy, and then go back to the previous tab and paste into the policy and click on Save Changes to save that policy. So close this tab and go back to the website, hit refresh. Now we successfully see the website that's been hosted as a static website. So next few steps is to demonstrate the versioning capabilities of S3. So let's enable versioning first by going back to the S3 console, scroll up and click on Properties. So by default, bucket versioning is disabled. We need to enable it by click on Edit and select Enable and click on Save Changes. So to demonstrate that, we need to modify the index.html file using your favorite IDE. So I have Visual Studio Code installed, so I'm going to use that to open the index.html file. So basically, we want to change the background color of like this two, right? So from light green, for example, to blue. So we change the background color to blue for these two sections and save the file. So let's go back to click on Objects. And yeah, we have this updated indexed file. We drag and drop here, click on upload, right? So the file gets uploaded. So let's go back to the site, refresh the page. Now the background color has been changed to blue. So let's look at the file in detail. So click on close. So by default, versioning is not displayed. We click on the toggle show versions to show the version details. As you can see, we have 2 copies of index.html with like 2 different version ID. So this one is the latest. So we need to answer question number 2. What's another way to ensure maximum protection and prevent the accidental deletion of a preserved version? So the option should be multi-factor authentication, right? By enable MFA, we actually provide an additional check to prevent against the accidental deletion. So click on submit and go back. So next, we are actually going to create lifecycle policies as well as create cross-region replication rules. So first, let's click on Management tab and go to the lifecycle configuration. We need to create 2 lifecycle rules. Hit Create Lifecycle Rule and use the name, let's say Rule 1. So we need to apply the rule to all objects, acknowledge it, because we need to move previous versions of all bucket objects to S3 standard IA after 30 days. Then we need to select the second checkbox, which is to transit non-current version of object between different storage classes, right? So acknowledge that. The storage class transition is standard IA, that's correct. Day is actually 30 days. So here is a summary of what this lifecycle rule is about. Just basically move non-current version of the file to standard IA after 30 days. So create the first rule. Similarly, we're going to create the second rule. Rule number 2, apply to all objects, acknowledge it. Now this time we need to delete the non-current version of objects permanently after 1 year, 365, right? So, and here is a summary of what this rule is about. Hit create rule to create the second rule. So finally, we need to create a cross-region replication. So before we can enable that, we need to create the target bucket. So right now the bucket are in US East 1, right? So let's copy the bucket name. We need to create a second bucket in a different AWS region. Let's choose US East 2, the Ohio region, as the target. So here we hit create bucket and I paste the source bucket name, append it with replication, right? So this is the target. Make sure that the AWS region is US East 2, right? So we leave all the options as is, except the bucket versioning. We need to enable it because that's the requirements for cross-region replication. Both the source and the target needs to have the bucket versioning enabled. So we leave other options as is and click on Create Bucket. So now the target bucket has been created. So click on this, the source bucket. So we need to enable cross-region replication on the source bucket first. So click on Management. Under the replication rules, right now this empty. We need to create a new one by click on Create Replication Rule. Let's provide the rule name. And for the source bucket, we choose the rule scope to all objects within the bucket. And the destination is a bucket in another region, right? So we click on Browse S3 and select the one ended with REPL, the target bucket, which is created in US ESA2. So choose the path. So one thing needs to be noticed is that in addition to cross-region replication for S3, you can also replicate S3 buckets across different AWS accounts, so which is pretty flexible. For IAM role, choose Café role. So this role is needed to allow the system to interact with both the source bucket and the target bucket for file replication. So leave other option as is and click on Save. Now the system will ask me to whether or not I want to replicate existing objects. So if I choose yes, then AWS is going to create a one-time batch job for us to replicate the existing objects to the target bucket. For the sake of this exercise, we are not going to do that. So we choose No and click on Submit. And then the replication rule has now been created. Right? So you go here, you will see the rule is enabled. So let's go back to the question number 3. Do you see the objects from your source bucket in the destination? So let's go back and click on the target bucket. That's empty, right? So because as we discussed, the existing objects will not be replicated. So the target in this case is a empty. So we go to the question and select No as the answer and hit Submit. And go back. So next we need to modify the index.html again. So this time, instead of using blue as the background color, I want to use pink instead. So I change blue to pink and save the file. I go to the source bucket, right? So the source bucket, yes. So I just drag and drop the file into the management console again and hit upload to update the index.html file. So the file is being uploaded. I hit close and I enable show versioning here. And as you can see, now we have like 3 versions of index.html. The most recent one is this one with the version ID and it with K6Z, right? So if we go to the website and refresh it, we see that the background color changes to the pink, right? So indicating that, yeah, the file has been updated. So let's go back to the target. And we see that, in fact, the indexed.html file is now available in the target bucket. If we show the versions, we will see that the version ID is exactly the same as the one in the source bucket. So one thing needs to be noticed is that in my case, the replication across region is pretty fast. But in certain scenarios, you may see a delay in cross-region replication, right? According to AWS, it may take up to 15 minutes for the S3 buckets to be replicated to another region. So if you don't see the change appear in your target bucket, wait several minutes. So lastly, we need to delete the latest version of that object. Right, so let's go back to the source. And enable show versions. So we select the latest version, we hit delete, and type permanent delete in the box and hit delete objects. So now we see that only 2 versions of the index.html file will exist in the source bucket. So if we refresh the page, we will see that background color changes back to blue, which is the previous version, right? So, but if we go back to the target bucket, even if you wait several minutes, you will not see any changes to this file, right? So this version of the file still exists in the target bucket, indicating that the permanent deleted file is not being synchronized to the target, right? So the target file is still there. That's related to question number 4. Was the version that you just deleted from source also deleted from your destination? The answer is no. Submit it. So yeah, that concludes this challenge lab.